Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Silas House.
Hello. Thank y'all. I gotta raise the mic up, sir. We're going to give you a hard time. Well, please go ahead and have your dessert and your coffee and continue to enjoy your lunch and bother me. First, I want to thank Sarah and Emily Scott who worked on with me on getting here. I appreciate y'all. I'm really honored to be speaking to you today. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm honored to be speaking to you today because I am aware of all the good work that FAHE is doing for the region. I'm here to tell you that you're doing important work and needed work, and you're doing work that is appreciated by many people. I love FAHE's motto of strength in numbers on the website because I believe strongly in that and agree with Margaret Mead's notion that the only people who ever made a difference or who can change the world is a small group of thoughtful, committed people. A small group, yes, but a small group who believes in the strength of themselves as a whole, the strength in their own numbers. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes talking to you today about the concept of home in Appalachia and the idea of pride in Appalachia and how I think that is the issue most affecting us today in the region. I have been pretty outspoken in my opposition to mountaintop removal coal mining, mainly because I think it threatens the region I call home. But when I say that, I mean that it affects the region not only physically, environmentally with the removal of mountains, but also spiritually by instilling in the minds of Appalachians that we are a sacrificial ground for the rest of the nation, that our home isn't important enough to be preserved and protected, that our home has to be sacrificed for the sake of cheap energy. I will not be focusing on mountaintop removal, but I will be focusing on the reasons I believe things like mountaintop removal exist. And the concept of home is at the very heart of that. During my speech, I'll be speaking to all of you as Appalachians. I believe that most of you are, but even if you're not from here originally, you're sitting in Appalachia today, you are involved with an organization that identifies as Appalachian in its operation and mission, and that makes you part of this country we call Appalachia. In some ways, I believe that we are all Appalachians, no matter where we come from, because Appalachia has always been a place made up of people who don't quite fit, who have been downtrodden but refuse to be defeated. Appalachians are perpetual immigrants, an ethnic group that everyone is still allowed to make fun of freely and with encouragement. Appalachia is the best and the worst of this country, and its joys and sorrows allow all of us to display and use our best and worst qualities. In short, if you're from Appalachia, I'm speaking directly to you. And if you're not from here, you are now an Appalachian, whether you like it or not, because this place is taking up residence in you and lives in you now. And that means I'm speaking to you. So I want to talk about what it means to be an Appalachian, what it means to be proud of that. I want to talk about the way education is the key to everything, and how no matter how many times someone puts you down, you have to rise back up and stand up for what you believe in, and for who you are, who your people are, and where your home is. I'll begin today, and in fact frame the entire speech with a poem that I wrote last year. It was recently published in a magazine out of Berea College called Appalachian Heritage that some of you may know. I'm going to read the poem, and then I'll spend the next few minutes explaining it and expanding on its themes. The poem is called Double Creek Girl. They don't expect much out of girls raised on Double Creek, up where the pines hang low over the road like a tunnel, and the sun doesn't rise until the rest of the world has had its coffee and forgotten the magic of morning already. Up where evening mist breathes over the clean graveyard and gardens with their straight rows. They don't think girls from a place like Double Creek will amount to anything at all. Especially when you were little and they had pictures of girls like you in all the magazines, Life and Look and Time. Once, a man from National Geographic came and took pictures up there. Girls in dresses their mothers made them, and stringy hair, hollow-eyed, hungry-eyed, sad-eyed. But you defied them, Double Creek girl. You showed them. Every time you opened a book and drank it up like spring water, each time you read a poem and closed your eyes at the end, savoring it like a good hunk of cornbread, seeing it like an azure sky, tasting the words like the wet in a bloom of honeysuckle. You showed them when you listened to every word the teacher said and walked that commencement line and took your degree from the hand of the professor who was secretly one of them. He never thought you could do it, but you did. See here, our Appalachia, our bone and blood. Listen, our Double Creek girl, you are what happens when we know that God lives in between the pages of books and at the tips of pencils and on the sharp edges of notebook paper. That's something they'll never know. So what does this poem mean? It's about overcoming the odds. It's about people underestimating someone because they're from a poor place, a rural place, an Appalachian place. But it's also a true story. I read this poem as a Christmas present for a friend of mine who's a high school teacher. Not only that, but she's one of the best teachers I've ever known. She goes the extra mile. She's excited about education, and she makes that excitement palpable to anyone who meets her. She loves books and words and knowledge and her students, and she loves her home, Appalachia. She got her education, and she could have gone anywhere in the world to share it, but she chose to come back here to give back to the region because she loves it and its people. Lots of people would not have expected her to turn out the way she did as one of the nation's best educators because she's from way up in the holler, Double Creek in Clay County, Kentucky. Her family did not have any money, and there were a whole lot of them. In 1971, when the girl in the poem was a child, National Geographic magazine, a magazine known for doing massive pictorials of third world countries, thought Double Creek so exotic and isolated that they came there and did a pictorial and long article about it. One of the pictures shows the one-room schoolhouse on Double Creek, populated by students who are required to not only learn, but also keep the school clean and operating. This school's closest thing to a lunchroom was a leaky refrigerator in the back of the room, which held the students' lunches they brought from home. The playground was nothing more than a field by the creek, as was mine when I was growing up. No swing sets or monkey bars. Truth be told, the school was at least 25 years behind the rest of the country. So, it wasn't exactly a school that colleges were beating at the door to get their students. Students from Double Creek had to work incredibly hard to get into a good college. And once there, they found that they had to work even harder to make some of their professors take them seriously because of where they were from and because of the way they talked. The girl in the poem overcomes the odds that are against her because she believes in herself. She has come to believe in herself through reading, poetry, and books, and being in touch with nature. She knows that education is her way to rise up. This is an experience I can relate to on many different levels. All my life I've been judged based on where I'm from. You cannot see my ethnicity on my skin, but you can hear it on my tongue. And I can no more get rid of it than anyone can change their skin color. Once upon a time I could have. When I was very young, some of my teachers pulled a bit of ethnic cleansing and tried to rid me and all my schoolmates of our accents. Most of us refused, sensing that we would be losing some important part of ourselves. It was only later that I realized that language was part of my ethnicity, and only much later that I realized that language was political. Some people do manage to get rid of their accents for different reasons. Some want to, some just naturally do when they're surrounded by people speaking in other accents, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as Appalachians, we are all marked by the land. In one way or another, it's a part of us, and if we don't hide that, then people are going to judge us based on that. Because they've seen pictures of one-room schoolhouses here during modern times, because the media media constantly paints a picture of us as being stupid and backward and lazy and illiterate.